Imagine you are a bank. You have trillions of dollars moving across borders every single day. You need speed. You need finality. You need something that cannot be frozen, cannot be clawed back, and cannot be seized by a court order from a jurisdiction you don't recognize. Now imagine someone walks in and hands you two options. Option A, a stablecoin, programmable, surveyable, and ultimately controlled by whoever holds the keys to the issuer's bank account. Option B, a decentralized digital asset running 1,500 transactions per second, never gone down once, resistant to seizure by design, and now officially invited to present at the world's most important banking event for the first time in history. Which one does a rational institution choose? That question has an answer, and the answer is being acted on right now, quietly, deliberately, and at a scale most retail investors are not prepared for. Welcome back to the Market Map Crypto, where we don't react to price, we read the architecture beneath it. Today, we are mapping three converging signals that most analysts are treating as separate stories. They are not separate. They are the same story. And when you see how they connect, the picture becomes impossible to ignore. Not financial advice. Let's map it. Let's start with the hard truth that David Schwartz, Ripple's own CTO, just put on the table publicly. Most people in the space have spent the last 2 years positioning stablecoins as the safe, decentralized alternative to government-controlled digital money. And on the surface, that argument sounds reasonable. Private issuer, not a CBDC. Freedom from government monetary control. But Schwartz just dismantled that argument with 3 precise points, and I want you to understand why this matters structurally, not emotionally. Point 1. A stablecoin is only stable relative to one currency. The moment you are operating across multiple jurisdictions, which is exactly what global cross-border settlement requires. The stability you bought in one currency becomes instability in another. The instrument that was supposed to solve the problem cannot actually solve the problem at scale. Point 2. A stablecoin can be frozen. It can be clawed back. RLUSD, Ripple's own stablecoin, can be seized under a court order. XRP cannot. That is not a marketing distinction. For an AI agent executing autonomous financial transactions across borders without the ability to defend itself in court, that distinction is the entire ballgame. And that brings us to point 3, the one that most people are sleeping on entirely. AI agents are coming. Autonomous systems that execute financial transactions on behalf of businesses, protocols, and individuals without human intervention. These agents cannot hire lawyers. They cannot appear in court. They cannot respond to a freeze order. They need a settlement asset that is structurally immune to seizure. Schwartz stated it plainly. AI agents are going to prefer cryptocurrencies over stablecoins. Not because of ideology, because of architecture. Think about what that means for demand. We are not just talking about human users choosing XRP over a stablecoin. We are talking about an entirely new class of financial actor, machine-based, always-on, operating at transaction volumes no human system can match, entering the market and selecting its settlement layer based on one criterion: which asset cannot be taken from it. The answer to that question is the same answer the institutions are arriving at right now. Now let's talk about the math, because this is where the story stops being abstract and starts being structural. Swift processes approximately $150 trillion in cross-border payment volume annually. The correspondent banking system that underlies Swift requires banks to maintain pre-funded liquidity pools in foreign currencies around the world. The Nostro and Vostro accounts. Current estimates place the capital locked inside those accounts at approximately $27 trillion. $27 trillion, sitting idle, earning nothing, deployed purely as friction. Ripple's on-demand liquidity model, powered by XRP, eliminates that requirement. Instead of pre-funding accounts in every currency corridor, a bank converts to XRP, transmits, and the counterparty converts out in seconds at a fraction of the cost. Now here is the math that the crowd ignores. If XRP captures just 10% of Swift's annual volume, a conservative entry position, you are talking about $15 trillion in annual settlement flow passing through a bridge asset with a fixed supply of 100 billion tokens, approximately 55 to 57 billion in circulation, and exchange reserves that are actively declining. At $2 XRP, moving $1 million requires 500,000 tokens as a bridge. At $20, that same transfer requires 50,000 tokens. At $100, it requires 10,000. The math of liquidity efficiency means that for a bridge currency operating at institutional scale, a higher price is not a side effect of adoption. It is a functional requirement of it. This isn't speculation. This is the mechanical relationship between settlement volume and bridge asset price. And here is the frame that puts everything in context. Wells Fargo's head of strategy said publicly at the Swift SIBOS event that Ripple has options to replace the old banking rails. That was in 2021. In 2026, Ripple Treasury is officially attending Swift SIBOS as a participant. Not a spectator, not a vendor in a side hall, a participant. The institution that for years could not get an invitation to the world's most important banking conference is now at the table. Ask yourself what changed, and ask yourself what a rational analyst concludes from that change. The door Brad Garlinghouse said they were knocking on is now open, and what comes through that door will not look like a slow adoption curve. It will look like a network effect. Before I show you the Franklin Templeton signal and what the IMF is quietly preparing for, I want to address the people watching this channel who have been holding XRP through years of sideways price action, through SEC headlines, through every reason to doubt. You were not wrong. You were early. And there is a difference that this market punishes you for feeling, right up until the moment the structure you identified becomes undeniable to everyone else. That is exactly the kind of analysis the market map crypto exists to provide. Not price targets designed to keep you emotional. Not hype, dressed as research. The structural map, read calmly, updated consistently, and shared with the people who understand why architecture matters more than the daily chart. If that is the standard you want from your crypto analysis, subscribe to the Market Map Crypto right now and hit the notification bell. Because what I am about to show you, the Franklin Templeton positioning signal and the IMF XRP connection, is the part of this story that most channels never get to. Franklin Templeton just made its move. The firm launched a dedicated crypto division with one stated mandate: become the leading active manager in the digital asset space. Their words, "We didn't come here to be small." Think about what that statement means structurally. Franklin Templeton manages trillions in assets. When a firm of that scale says it did not come to be small in a market, it is not describing a pilot program. It is describing a strategic reallocation of institutional capital at a scale that changes market structure. And what is their operational focus? Navigating institutions through the crypto space. The clients they described, fund managers, sovereign entities, and corporate treasuries, are the same entities that will need a settlement rail that is fast, final, and immune to seizure. Now layer the IMF signal on top of that. Brad Garlinghouse, when asked publicly whether the IMF will hold crypto assets in the future, did not dismiss the question. He framed the condition. For that to happen, some country would need to use a crypto asset as its currency. Look around. Every country is building a CBDC or a national stablecoin. Every one of those instruments will need a bridge to move value across borders, in a system where no single country's digital currency is universally accepted. You are holding the bridge. The IMF is watching tokenization. The World Economic Forum has been in documented discussions with Ripple since 2014 and 2015. The World Bank, the BIS. These are the architects of the global financial system, signaling, quietly, in the language of institutional positioning, where the rails are being built. Jake Claver framed it precisely. Once one company is forced into crypto adoption to remain competitive, it becomes a handful, then another handful. Then the network effect takes over, and at that point, there is no slowing it down. Here is what the timeline looks like from a structural standpoint. Ripple Treasury at Swift SIBOS 2026, confirmed. XRP placed in front of the world's largest banks at the most important banking conference on the planet. That is not a future event. That is a scheduled reality. The Digital Asset Clarity Act, moving through the legislative process, is the regulatory gate that, when it opens, removes the institutional risk premium from the entire asset class. The firms that are positioning now are positioning before that gate opens, because once it does, the price gap happens before retail has time to react. The OWS Hackathon, actively building payments infrastructure, identity systems, settlement rails, and wallet architecture on the XRP ledger right now. The builders are here, the infrastructure is being assembled, and the Bitwise signal, another major wave of institutional capital arriving before year-end 2026, is not a prediction from an optimist. It is an observation from an executive who manages institutional crypto allocations professionally. The infrastructure is built. The participants are arriving. The window of accessibility is closing. Let me be direct about supply mechanics. XRP has a fixed total supply of 100 billion tokens. Circulating supply sits at approximately 55 to 57 billion. Monthly escrow releases of 1 billion tokens are predominantly relocked. They do not hit the open market at scale. Exchange reserves are declining. That means tokens are moving off exchanges, not to be sold, but to be held. That is the on-chain signature of accumulation, not speculation. When institutional vaults absorb XRP at scale, those tokens do not return to market for a 10% gain. They are infrastructure holdings, locked for years, is not permanently deployed in liquidity corridors. The crowd is currently arguing about whether XRP tops out at $10 or $20. They are using a speculative bull run framework to analyze a utility adoption event. Those are two completely different phenomena. Technical analysis cannot price a new financial system. There is no chart pattern for that. I understand the patience this requires. The market has been sideways. The headlines have been loud. The doubt is real. But here is how a structural analyst reads this moment. Every announcement from Ripple recently has been an acquisition, a partnership, a new rail, a new corridor. They are accelerating. You do not accelerate infrastructure deployment if you believe the thesis is broken. You accelerate when you know what's coming and you are racing to be ready for it. Being early feels exactly like being wrong, right up until the moment the structure you identified becomes the price everyone is chasing. The signal is clear. The question is whether you are still watching it, or whether the noise has already cost you your position. Let's map what we decoded today. Stablecoins have a structural ceiling that XRP does not, and David Schwartz just explained exactly why AI agents will expose that ceiling at machine speed. Swift SIBOS 2026 puts XRP in front of the world's largest banks for the first time. Franklin Templeton entered the space with institutional scale ambitions. The IMF connection is documented, not speculative. And the math of bridge currency liquidity efficiency means that utility adoption does not produce a gradual price curve. It produces a step change. If this channel is mapping a story that no one else is drawing clearly, subscribe to the Market Map Crypto before the next piece of this analysis drops. The next signal I am tracking is one that most people in this space have not yet connected to XRP. Stay rational, stay structured, stay mapped. The system is not almost complete. It is being completed right now, in real time, while most people are staring at the wrong screen.